How did prehistoric humans survive 30 days of rain? Day 23. The rain has not stopped once. Water is crawling across the cave floor. Smoke is trapped under the ceiling. Your last pile of dry wood is now smaller than the wet clump of hair hanging from one prehistoric man's head. The fire in front of you is no longer a fire. It is one glowing red coal. 12 people are staring at it. Outside, something large is moving near the cave entrance. It could be a hyena. It could be a leopard. Or it could be the stomach of a prehistoric man who ate the emergency food on day 3. If that ember dies, you lose your heat, your cooked food, your light, and the one thing most predators do not want to approach. So what do you save first? The fire, the food, the children, or the prehistoric man who has just decided that blowing directly on the ember is a brilliant idea? To understand how prehistoric humans survived weeks of rain, we need to go back to the first day of the storm. This exact 30-day rainstorm is a thought experiment. We cannot look at an ancient cave floor and read a weather calendar. But long periods of cold rain, flooding wet fuel, spoiled food, and forced shelter were real problems. And surviving them required much more than hiding under a rock. It required planning. It required teamwork. And occasionally, it required stopping one prehistoric man from doing something unbelievably stupid. On the first day, the rain seems harmless. You move deeper into the rock shelter. You drag in the meat, the tools, the sleeping mats, and every dry branch you can carry. Everyone is wet, but nobody is worried yet. Then, the cave begins to change. Rainwater runs down the walls. Mud forms near the entrance. The air becomes damp. Smoke stops rising properly. Wet animal skins begin to smell like a dead goat that has made several terrible life choices. And the floor becomes dangerous. A cave is not automatically a safe home. Some caves flood. Some collect smoke. Some become cold wind tunnels. Some are already occupied by animals with larger teeth and fewer opinions about sharing. A smart group would study the shelter before trusting it. Where does the water flow? Which part stays dry? Where can smoke escape? Is there a higher ledge for children, food, and fuel? Can a shallow channel guide water away from the sleeping area? This is prehistoric engineering. No blueprints, no measuring tape. Just generations of people remembering which mistakes nearly killed somebody last time. At Sibudu, a rock shelter in South Africa, archaeologists found plant bedding dating back tens of thousands of years. People gathered sedges and other plants, arranged them into sleeping layers, and sometimes included aromatic leaves with insect-repelling properties. That does not mean they owned luxury waterproof mattresses. It means they understood that the ground beneath them mattered. A raised, replaceable layer of plants could separate a body from cold dirt, absorb some moisture, reduce pests, and make a crowded shelter more livable. So the first battle is not against hunger. It is against the cave itself. You move the sleeping area uphill. You place stones under the food baskets. You replace soaked grass. You keep waste far from the cleanest part of the shelter. One prehistoric man suggests putting everything directly beside the fire. The prehistoric man is immediately removed from the planning committee. By the third day, the most important job in the group becomes obvious. Fire keeper. In your world, fire is not decoration. It is a heater, stove lamp, predator barrier, tool maker, clothes dryer, and morale department. But rain attacks fire from every direction. The wood is wet. The air is wet. The cave walls are wet. Even the person protecting the fire is wet. The group divides the fuel into 3 piles. Wet wood goes near the edge to dry slowly. The best dry pieces are hidden deeper in the shelter. Small twigs, bark fibers, and other easy-burning material are protected like treasure. Larger branches can be split open because the inside may still be drier than the surface. The firekeeper does not simply throw on a giant log and hope for the best. Too much damp fuel can smother the flames. Too little fuel can let the embers fade. Too much smoke can make the shelter impossible to breathe in. So people work in shifts. One watches the fire. One prepares fuel. One checks the drainage. One keeps children away from the flames. And one watches a prehistoric man who believes every fire improves when hit with a stick. Keeping fire alive may be just as important as knowing how to start it. Different prehistoric populations used fire in different ways, and their fire-making abilities changed across time and place. But in a long storm, preserving a working flame saves time, energy, and risk. By the 5th day, the group has warmth. Now it needs food. This is where the heroic mammoth hunting plan falls apart. Heavy rain can erase tracks, swell, rivers turn slopes slippery, and push animals into dense cover. A hunter running through mud with a wooden spear is not an action hero. He is one bad step away from becoming a long-term burden on 12 hungry relatives. And wet conditions can make some bindings or adhesives less reliable. A loose stone point is not a spear. It is an expensive stick, so the group changes strategy. Large prey may be harder to reach, but rain changes the entire landscape. Snails and other small animals may become easier to find. Flooded burrows can drive creatures toward the surface. Wet soil can make some roots and tubers easier to dig. Streams may offer fish, frogs, shellfish, or animals concentrated near safer crossings, depending on the region. The important lesson is not that every storm produces a magical buffet. The lesson is flexibility. When one food source becomes difficult, successful groups look for another. Children can gather. Older people can process plants. Experienced adults can check traps nearby pools and sheltered terrain without risking a long chase. Any dried meat, nuts, seeds, or other saved food becomes extremely valuable. Even a small reserve buys the group time to make better decisions. One prehistoric man returns from gathering with one snail, 3 shiny rocks, and a stick that resembles another stick he already owns. The snail is accepted. By the 2nd week, survival becomes less dramatic and more exhausting. Nobody is currently freezing. Nobody is currently starving. But everybody is wet, smoky, dirty, and trapped with the same people. This may be the most dangerous stage. Imagine 15 relatives sharing one dark room. There is no door. There is no private corner. There is no noise-canceling device. Someone is coughing. Someone is sharpening stone. A baby is crying. 2 adults are arguing about a missing strip of dried meat. A prehistoric man is practicing bird calls. There are no birds inside the cave. A group that cannot control tension may waste energy fighting split apart at the wrong time, or stop cooperating on essential work. So people stay busy. Stone edges are resharpened. Broken spear shafts are repaired. Plant fibers are twisted into cord. Animal skins are scraped and maintained. Clothing is patched. Baskets, nets, traps, handles, and bindings are checked before they are needed again. Archaeology from many prehistoric sites shows tools at different stages of production inside caves and rock shelters. Bone awls and eyed needles from later Paleolithic contexts show that some groups eventually became highly skilled at piercing and stitching hides. Rain did not invent sewing, but a long period inside gives people time to perform the slow work that a hunting day does not. It also gives experts time to teach. A child watches an adult strike flakes from stone, not randomly. Angle, force, direction. One wrong blow can ruin the core. One good blow can create an extremely sharp cutting edge. The child tries. The flake breaks badly. A prehistoric man calls it art. For once, the prehistoric man may be ahead of his time. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, people were processing ochre in abalone shells around 100,000 years ago. They ground mineral material, mixed ingredients, and stored an ochre-rich compound. We do not know that they made it during a rainstorm. We do not even know every purpose the mixture served, but the discovery proves something important. These people could collect different materials, follow a sequence, use containers, and prepare a compound for later use. That is planning beyond the next meal. In our imaginary cave, someone begins grinding red ochre while the rain continues outside. The children watch. One person marks a pattern on a hide. Another paints a line across a face. One prehistoric man paints 2 enormous red circles around his eyes and announces that predators will now fear him. Everyone laughs, and that laughter matters. Modern studies of hunter-gatherer communities have found that conversation around evening fires often shifts away from daytime problems toward stories, songs, relationships, and shared traditions. That does not give us a recording of a Paleolithic conversation, but it offers a useful clue. Firelight changes the room. During the day, people discuss food, tools, injuries, routes, and work. At night, the old hunter retells the story of the river crossing. A grandmother explains which plants are dangerous. Children learn where the herds move when the dry season returns. Someone imitates the chief being chased by an angry boar. The chief claims the boar was much larger. The story becomes larger every time it is told. This is not wasted time. Stories can store information in a form that people remember. A warning becomes a monster. A safe route becomes a hero's journey. A lesson about pride becomes a comedy about a man who challenged a boar while wearing no trousers. Culture is not simply decoration added after survival. Culture helps groups survive together. By day 18, the rain becomes heavier. The shallow drainage channel overflows. Water reaches the old sleeping area. The group moves the bedding to a stone shelf and builds a thicker plant platform. Wet hides are hung where warm air can reach them without blocking the smoke. Food is suspended or placed on rocks. Fuel is moved farther from the entrance. Every small invention begins to connect with another. Cord holds the hides. Stone tools cut the plants. Bedding keeps bodies above the wet floor. Fire dries the tools and clothing. Stories keep frightened children calm while adults work. Cooperation is now a technology. Then comes day 23, the day we started with. The fire is dying. The dry fuel is almost gone. Water is moving across the floor, and a spotted shape appears at the cave entrance. The animal outside does not care that this shelter has a waiting list. It is cold, wet, and searching for the same thing you are. Dry ground. The group cannot charge into the storm. It cannot allow the animal deeper into the cave, and it cannot waste the last fire. So everyone performs the job they have practiced. 2 adults pull the children onto the higher shelf. Others lift the food and tools. The firekeeper gathers the glowing embers into the driest available fuel. Smoke is directed toward the entrance. People shout strike stones, wave burning branches, and make themselves appear larger. A prehistoric man raises his favorite stick. For the first time in 23 days, the stick is useful. The animal backs away, but the fire still collapses into one red ember. Someone leans forward to blow on it. Every person in the cave screams. Not too hard. He blows gently. The ember brightens. A thin flame appears, then another. The cave fills with the most beautiful sound in the prehistoric world. Crackling wood. The group does not survive because one heroic hunter defeats nature. It survives because different people solve different parts of the same problem. The person who collected dry bark matters. The person who dug the drainage channel matters. The child who remembered where extra grass was stored matters. The elder who knew which nearby foods appeared after rain matters. Even the person holding the unnecessary stick matters, slightly. Finally, sometime after day 30, the sound changes. The rain weakens. The dripping slows. A blade of sunlight enters the cave and touches the wall. People step outside carefully. The world is different. Streams are full. Plants are pushing through wet soil. The ground records fresh tracks with extraordinary clarity. Some paths are gone, but new food sources have appeared. The storm has created danger, but it has also reset the landscape. The group does not immediately sprint after the first animal it sees. It checks the river. It inspects the tools. It reads the tracks. It carries protected embers. It moves with a plan. A month earlier, the cave was only shelter. Now it contains repaired weapons, new cord, patched clothing, fresh knowledge, shared jokes, and children who understand more than they did before the storm. Rain did not magically invent art. It did not single-handedly create language. And ancient humans were not superhuman masters who enjoyed every disaster. They became cold. They became hungry. They became frightened and angry and tired. But they had one advantage that mattered more than claws, fur, or enormous teeth. They could cooperate around a problem that lasted longer than one person's strength. So the next time rain ruins your weekend, remember the cave. Remember the tiny ember. Remember the family repairing tools, sharing food, teaching children, and laughing while the storm tries to erase the world outside. Your ancestors did not survive because they could control the weather. They survived because they could change their behavior before the weather changed its mind. And somewhere, deep inside that ancient cave, one prehistoric man is still holding a completely unnecessary stick, waiting for everyone to admit that it is a very good stick.